Okay. The ugly side of testosterone. Let's get into this. So, you guys all know testosterone is the male hormone that, makes you hunky and grow muscles and all that stuff. Gives you a deeper voice. I don't have a very deep voice, so maybe I don't have a lot of testosterone, which could be a good thing. But anyways, I was watching this interview with Joe Rogan. He's interviewing this expert on toxoplasmosis. And he said something so interesting about testosterone and how testosterone influences the brain, okay? A particular part of the brain called the frontal cortex. And he's going to explain what that is and how this is so important, especially for people who want to live forever.
Over and over in life, we come to splits in the road where we've got temptations and we've got impulses and we've got, yeah, go for it right now, you want it. And the frontal cortex is critical at that juncture as to whether we do the inane, impulsive, self-indulgent thing that we may perhaps regret for the rest of our lives, or if you tough it out and do the right, and what your frontal cortex does at critical junctures is one of the most consequential pieces of neurobiology we've got. So you ask, what kind of things affect how well your frontal cortex is working in that 1 second where you have to decide if that person is holding a cell phone or a handgun, and do you pull a trigger? Or in that 1 second where you decide, do you take this thing and run, or does temptation get resisted? And so what sort of biological things affect what your frontal cortex is doing? How hungry you are, if you're hypoglycemic, how tired you are, if you're in pain. All of those make the frontal cortex work not as well. If you're male, what your testosterone levels are at the time. No surprise, testosterone makes your frontal cortex all sluggish and stupid.
Okay, that was it. Particularly what he said at the end there. He said that the testosterone makes your frontal cortex all sluggish and stupid. And he explained what the frontal cortex does. It's in charge of your decision-making process. And basically, it's like having inhibition. It's like basically being able to reason and decide, why are you doing what you're doing, and thinking before you do things. It has to do with having willpower and not just going at whatever you desire in the moment. So it has to do with long-term, being reasonable and logical and making decisions based upon their long-term effects rather than just what feels good in the moment. And so testosterone, people who have tons of testosterone might do a lot of risky things. They're going to have less inhibition because their frontal cortex is not working as efficiently. So it's an important idea is if you suspect you have a lot of testosterone, you need to be very careful that you're not making rash decisions that is just basically your frontal cortex being stupid. And that would be the idea that people who have tons of testosterone, they go out there and they're being promiscuous and they're having sex with whoever and one-night stands because they're just being controlled by their testosterone. And that could reduce your chances of living forever because you might get an STD and that kind of thing. Or another example would be someone who goes into a bar fight and they're not thinking rationally because their frontal cortex is all messed up by their high testosterone, and they go out and do something stupid and get themselves killed. Those are just a few examples. So it has to do with impulsivity, right? And basically generally daredevil behavior. Those daredevil people are more likely to have that super high level of testosterone that's making their frontal cortex sluggish. So just be aware of what type of person you might be. Maybe you might have tons and tons of testosterone because of your genetics or whatever. Something to talk about. And, that guy was an expert in toxoplasmosis, so I'd just like to give a little PSA here. If you're a cat owner, be very careful, because if you have a cat that goes outdoors, if that cat gets toxoplasmosis, if that cat eats a rat, and that's how it gets toxoplasmosis, and that can be transmitted to humans. And that's where we get this idea of the crazy cat lady, because toxoplasmosis messes around with your brain. It can increase your chances of getting schizophrenia, and it also impairs your frontal cortex. That's why that guy knows a lot about the frontal cortex, because he's like a expert on toxoplasmosis. So you do not want to get this parasite. Be very careful of cats. Even a cat scratch can give you toxoplasmosis. Breathing in the dust of a litter box can give you toxoplasmosis, so you have to be very careful. And because toxoplasmosis impairs your frontal cortex, this also can increase your likelihood of, angry outbursts and being more promiscuous and more impulsive. People with toxoplasmosis are more likely to get in car crashes. They're more impulsive. They're more likely to do dangerous things, be daredevils, and so on. Risk their life in tons of different ways. So it's a very important idea that there's parasites that actually control our brains. Okay. Here we have a little article just backing up what I was saying, that a common cat parasite linked to angry outbursts in humans.